All right, everybody, welcome back. Randy and I are looking forward to sitting down with Jim Niedzinski, who's a managing director and co-founder of Motive Wealth Advisors, concierge-level fiduciary wealth management for high net worth families in the context of deep relationships. How you position yourself. And, you know, this is Randy and I, as soon as COVID hit, we started this Wednesday mindset because we wanted to help people with the right mindset through this time. And it's something that we both love to do. And when it comes to, I want to talk about the mindset. I want to kick it off today about the mindset of what context of deep relationships means. Because I think there's nothing more important than relationship capital and building brand ambassadors and being authentic. But I don't ever really see it in somebody's, you know, first sentence of basically putting it out there that, hey, that's what we want to attract. So can you just, first of all, welcome. Good to see you, all that great stuff. But what does that mean? What does that mean to you, to Motive, and just the DNA of all of it?
Yeah, true wealth is relationship. And that's been proven scientifically, it's testified to spiritually, and it's been my empirical experience as well. So while our business is dealing with a lot of financial capital, really the most valuable asset is relationship. And Robert Waldinger is a TED Talk everyone needs to look up and listen to. Robert Waldinger is the head of a Harvard study on relationship, and in 12 minutes you'll catch the essence of why deep relationship is so important to us. So if we're not investing in relationships, then we're really missing the biggest lifelong trend. And so John and Randy, that's why that's such an emphasis for us, because if that isn't part of our experience with the clients we serve, then we're missing out as well. So it's good for the world and it's good for me. That's the reason why.
And are you talking about what makes a good life?
Yeah, that's right. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. It's a great TED Talk. Yeah.
Well, you know, along the same lines of relationship capital, and that's well said, Jim. You have, you know, it's no different than what John does and what I do. It's that intangible of goodwill, and I think so many in your industry, and I don't want to paint a broad brush, but many of them lack. You know, they're sort of viewing the relationship as a commodity, right? It's based on assets under management. It's based on, you know, what percentage we can charge, and there isn't much hand holding. So I see one level of what holds you apart from others, but can you speak to what else really differentiates you from a hyper-competitive field, such as financial advising?
Yes, our model is anti-scale. And what we need to clarify here is, John, business coach, you definitely are telling people how to scale their business so they can serve more people more efficiently. And that's so important. I'm not against that. But scale can be pushed to the point where relationship is lost, and the type of high touch service that our particular business is so important for it. We can really make a difference when we get to the minute, and scale can get in the way of that. How can I serve 1,000 clients? How can I serve 10,000 clients? That initiative, in my experience and view, is not helpful for the client. So we are an anti-scale model. The average advisor in our industry, by survey shows, serves about 150 clients. So per one of me, I should serve 150 families. Good, solid research has shown that to be a bad idea. And so we've limited the clients we serve to around 50, maybe 75 per professional clients. So the differentiator, Randy, is the ability to harness information and service and attention and energy and relationship to a select number of people. So it's both relationship and the ability to spend the time to do it right. Yeah. And that's what gets us excited.
Yeah, I want to go a little bit deeper in that, because you know, to me, I think the way I define, I don't know if any of you guys are hearing echo. Can you hear? Anyway, so the way I define thinking big is, small things every day that compound to something really big. And so, when we talk about mindset, what are some of the small things, Jim, when you talk about the minute, what are some of those small things that you are consciously, doing on a daily basis with and for your clients?
Yeah, there'd be two categories. One would be the relational, like we were just talking about, and the other would be the actual business that we're in. On that, I'll do both. On that topic, just taking the most recent example is we have a client who part of their family is moving to New York City. And so I coordinated every last detail of that process, from working with the realtor to researching how we should own it. Do we need an LLC? Should it be a co-op or a condo? There's an irrevocable trust involved. Should that be the one paying for it? Oh no, that we're not going to do that. Spoke with multiple lenders in New York City to find the best arrangement. Ultimately decided to rent, worked with the realtor to get background checks. We did all of the details because it takes that kind of attention to organization and process to get something like that done. So that made their life easier, but we also ended up with a much better outcome. So that would be an example, and I'll pause for your comment there.
Yeah, so that's what I want to turn the attention, and you just started the conversation on that white glove concierge approach.
Yeah.
And you seem to hear more and more of it, especially in the world of concierge medicine, right?
Yes.
So I think we're either they borrowed from the financial advisory industry, or we borrowed from them. Either way, you have a very happy client, but sometimes with the wrong advisor, they may be in over their head.
Yeah.
So, in that world, you really have to have the depth and the breadth and the skill and level of attention to really get that job done and do so in a way that, appeals to the client. So what you just set forth is, in my mind, that's the perfect model of true concierge, financial advisory.
Yeah, and it's worth you mentioning that concierge medicine, because many of the clients I serve are subscribed to that, and they love it. University of Michigan recently, in the last few years, launched a whole concierge medicine service, and it's been so well received. And you're right, it is the model for those for whom it's a fit.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Randy.
No, I think and many people, I think many, at least in the physician world, they sort of shy away from taking that model for fear of reducing revenue. But what they don't realize is if you have the raving fans, you're going to sign up enough people and have 50% of the stress and 100% of the revenue.
Yes. Yeah, we're live, and I got to be careful not to be too specific, but just this week, a client we serve moved, and that's a small thing, right? But concierge says, what are all the ripple effects of that? So while procuring the apartment in New York City took a lot of technical expertise, this did not. It just took organization, initiative, the time. I wrote all of the things that need to be done, included on an email with assigned tasks to the accountant, the attorney. Actually, there's two attorneys involved, the insurance agent, and wrapped it all into one. And that's just what we do. The client the next day emailed me and said, FYI, and below was a referral to a CEO of a company. And that referral said, hey, just scan this list below. It won't make sense to you, the details, but this is the kind of things that Jim does for me. And I didn't ask him to do this. And that referral, that CEO, I have a call with here today. So whether it's really technical, like you're talking, Randy, or it's just taking the time to do things right, it's that concierge approach that makes the difference.
And that is what's selling. I think that's where you get the motive, because you motivated that client to take the next step and to do that. So,
hey, good insight.
Double-edged sword.
Right. Well, and also, and I love everything that's being talked about right now, but you're talking about where you're at a point where the investment, the price of the services don't matter, because those types of people understand that if they were to get this collective service from a collection of 3 other people, it would be more. But I would imagine, Jim, and you tell me, just having it off their shoulders and knowing that they can trust somebody, it's priceless.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I agree. And I think increasingly the ability for any professional, any business that serves clients, the ability to capture every detail and not let things fall through the crack is so basic, yet so rare.
Yeah.
And, I'm a huge proponent of the David Allen getting things done method to personal and professional productivity. Just cannot speak highly enough about it, or anyone's approach, so long as it's followed very religiously. But for me, it's been a professional foundation to do things well, is to be able to organize and get all that stuff done.
Yeah. Let's talk about another tentacle of what you're talking about, this white glove concierge service, because I think there's something that the 3 of us have in common. I know you do this, Jim. Randy, as we both know, is a very esteemed estate attorney who also does this impeccably. Accessibility, right? So we are of service to our clients, and I think one of the key white glove elements is always being approachable, of course, but always being accessible to our clients when they need us, right? So talk a little bit about the importance of accessibility. And I know Randy can talk on that too, but to me, I have found it to be a critical differentiator because I actually can follow up the way I say that I follow up. So can you kind of speak on that as well?
Yeah, I that you're famous for that. In fact, Jon, being accessible quickly and following right back up. I think that I hear some people talk about defending boundaries and it's so important to have off time. And I agree, but I think a business can be structured to be accessible nearly always and still have boundary and place and time for family. And other priorities. It's just dynamic. So, the work-life balance, it's more work-life integration. And I have found it to be so helpful to be able to answer a call when someone wouldn't think that I otherwise would. Our receptionist is 7 days a week. My phone rings anywhere I am. My office phone. We invested in which is rare for financial advisors. We can text our clients. I know it may sound surprising to the 2 of you, right? But regulations require certain archiving of information. Most advisors can't text with their clients. And if they are, they're breaking a rule. But we've got a unique system that allows us to text. So you're 100% right. And one of the values we posted on our website we call it presence, Jon, because I think accessibility is one of those components of presence, but there are others. For me, I think it's been critical deliverable, and so much so it made that list of our top values.
Yeah, and I would think that along those same lines, the other intangibles that you have to offer in the service industry is, along with accessibility, is that skill level, the service, and your knowledge. And I tell people, price is only an issue in the absence of value, and oftentimes it doesn't come down to cost. It's effectively a function of value. If they're getting the value and they're getting the time, the service, and the skill set, people don't have a problem with it. They certainly don't. And then those that do, you may have to, question whether or not that's a relationship worth, building.
Right.
And as I get older, I tend to learn that more and more. All the things that I took for granted years ago, just happy to have that client on the roster. Now, as I get older, it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
Randy, I'd be interested to hear your take on moving from deep work to client engagement and back and forth, because what you do requires such focus, such research. It can be a challenge, I think, for some business owners who are in the service industry to move from that concept that we've often seen in time management to time block and to focus and have focus time, yet that means you're not accessible. So balancing those two can be tough for some. I wonder if you have any immediate insights, or do you have to just live in that tension like the rest of us?
Well, you talk about work-life integration, and that's well said. I look at it more of a professional buoyancy. I consider myself, so using a metaphor, I'm in a life jacket in the water, But every now and then, I know the life jacket is anchored to the top. I take a deep dive, hold my breath, get it done, and then come back up for air. But you got to have capacity. You have understanding of where you are. You also have to be able to multitask. All of us are in the professional service business, but ultimately we're entrepreneurs. And if you cannot do all of that, you're going to drown. You're simply going to drown. And that's really what sets people like us apart, whether it's good or bad. It's something that I thrive on. And, that professional buoyancy is something that, I've never really articulated it before until you, express it to me, Jim. But I think that's something that I excel at. So I can do the deep dive. I can come back up for air, smile, and go back under.
Yeah, it's great. I love it. It's so nice to hear and talk about, just kind of heart-centered leadership, which is what you're talking about, Jim, in your business. And one of the things I think that what happened with COVID is that people kind of got reconnected with their own personal values, not just the business values of the company they worked for, but their own personal values. And they kind of started, we all had kind of like 2 months to just decompress and reflect. And I think people got back connected. And I know I did on a deeper level, just in your heart, right? And so it's nice. It's really special seeing companies that are led by driven people who are hungry, disciplined, resilient, but also move from a space that is, I don't want to say trendy, but new to a lot of people, right? That you can actually build a business being a kind, heart-led person.
Yeah.
So how did you have the courage to kind of come out? And because I think a lot of people would say, well, I don't know if I'm going to like put in my tagline that like the context of deep relationship or presence or things of that nature. I remember when I was managing a real estate company that I was managing for a bunch, my office manager came to me and said, everybody's kind of laughing behind your back if you say the word energy one more time about, positive energy or this, that, and the other. So I had to find like different words to use that meant the same thing that I could get the same effect. So just can you kind of speak on just kind of the heart-centered world for a second?
Of course. Brene Brown was a big catalyst in her work. So that's worth a Google for any listeners. It's worth listening to her TED Talks, her books. And so she's been, if you're not familiar, I'm to listeners, that she's pushing this movement that vulnerability is positive. It's a good thing. And when most of us hear the word vulnerability, we think we're susceptible to attack. We're showing our soft underbelly, and that sounds bad. But her research finds the opposite. And her language for that, the research she did, was a big part of giving me the courage, which is a word she uses, over the last several years to move toward being really me, fully me with clients I serve, as opposed to being on stage.
Yeah.
So while I am attempting to give the clients that I serve an experience, if I can do that from a place of authenticity, then it's selfish in one sense, because I know the person that they are liking is really me. And then vice versa, they can experience the real me and they can smell that, they can feel that.
Yeah.
So it's just freeing. And it may mean a smaller, narrower group of clients can I connect with at a heart level, because some people might not like the real me. But for those who we do connect, my gosh, what a great relationship. And now we're back talking about true wealth. And that is connection, which can only happen through vulnerability. If I'm not vulnerable, we can't truly connect. It's fake.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where I've seen, I think a lot of companies and other persons that are in our space may fall short, because it's more, like the state of Missouri, it's a show me state. They're show me, don't tell me. And oftentimes they're leading with, here's what I will do or what I can do for you, versus let me show you what I can do and what I'm all about, and showing that side of them. And it only takes a little bit of time before a client or customer understands who they're dealing with. And when they can find someone as refreshing as you, Jim, it's going to make that leap of faith that instinctually they know you're probably the right fit. They're going to cement it, and they're going to certainly know. So, I think your approach has a magical quality to it, and something that's going to resonate well for many people.
Yeah.
So,
But it is scary. John, you were talking about the concern business owners have about narrowing the number of clients or delivering white glove service, that you might miss out on opportunity. It's the same concept. Like, well, I want to be the everything to everybody, because I want to be able to say yes to anybody who wants to do business. So it's a legitimate, scary step for any entrepreneur to take, to say, nope, I'm going to limit the number of clients I serve based on what you were just talking about, Randy. I'm not going to be all things to all people. And that someone has to believe that that's worth the risk. And I do.
Yeah, and you really can't. I mean, I think too many yeses will result in a very big no. And I had to learn that a long time ago, as a young attorney, when somebody would ask me, well, do you know whatever the issue was, if it was outside of my wheelhouse, I learned a long time ago to say no, but let me get you somebody, or let me get you the answer. And that's what they respect and what they've always learned to appreciate.
Yes.
Yeah, well said. Well said. I always got that lesson from my parents as well growing up. But I just want to go back to Brene Brown for a second, because what you're talking about, and one of my favorite things about Brene Brown, I've read all of her books, seen all of her TED Talks on Netflix, is she talks a lot about being in the arena, right? And so what you're talking about is, when you're if you're in the arena and someone's judging you who's outside of the arena, you don't care. Like, unless you're in the arena, go away. And so I think that, I don't know, it's those. Daring Greatly is, I think, one of the greatest books ever. Should be mandatory reading. But I also want to bring up one other book because of what you said. I feel like when I started my business, I started a business being myself. I feel like, I'm not speaking for Randy, but I feel like Randy is completely himself. Gary Zukav wrote a book, it's called The Seat of the Soul. I read it about 25 years ago. And it was really impactful because it had a sentence in it that said, with some adaptation, the perfect human being is where the personality ends and the soul begins, and you can't even tell. And it was pretty powerful. I mean, a pretty powerful piece. I think I put myself in therapy right after, because it resonated. But it's true. And I hope, as people listen to your message, Jim, that it resonates with them, as we're seeing more people become entrepreneurs and more people kind of find their voice of what they want to do. Many people are furloughed, thinking, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? A lot of people have unique abilities where they can be themselves. They've got skill sets that they don't think, hey, I could actually turn this into a profession, a career, a job, and grow. And I can be myself doing it instead of, like you said, being on stage.
I love that quote, and I have not read that book, but need to.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's talk a little bit about just kind of the market in general. I know you can't give any advice right now, but what's, the Dow's all over the place. Interest rates are, still low. I mean, what should we expect, right? Within compliance that you can respond, but what should we what should we expect these next couple of months? And, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. The big picture, and then we'll zoom down to the small. The big picture is it's very likely that the next 10 years will have below average returns for the broad markets. And that's not something someone selling something wants to say, unless they're selling something that defends against that. But even then, it's not a popular thing. But to avoid that likely reality is not wise. So it's prudent to acknowledge that for anyone making long-term plans, and to understand what that means. It isn't the end of the world, and it isn't horrible, but it is an important distinction. There are different cycles. In the 1950s, the US market averaged almost 20% for a decade. Well, the first decade of the 2000s, the US stock market lost almost 1%. And so that's a very big difference over a course of 10 years in the same market, the same duration of time. So from a planning standpoint, that should be the context or the framework with which one then makes more tactical or short-term decisions. It's to say, the next 10 years is likely to produce below average returns overall. So the answer to your real tactical short-term question is best looked at in light of that, first off.
But the key is to stay in as opposed to trying to time it. And this is something we've read through and through with all the experts. You have to stay. And having done this for 23 years, I've seen people try to time the market and they've gotten hurt.
Yeah.
And I know historically the S&P over, I forgot what the timeline is, generally returns about 7.5% to 8% over time. So even in those peak earning years versus the down years, if you stay in, you effectively receive those returns.
Absolutely right. And the track record is horrific to watch. Even the best of the best who get billions and billions invested with them because they were right a time or two on the timing, Randy, and then they're very, very wrong on the next one. And that kind of inconsistency is a terrible way to try to build or maintain wealth. Yeah. So for sure, consistency, whether you're in the 50s or the 2000s, that consistency of investment is certainly a core principle. Yeah, absolutely. Now, short term, here's the real answer. Nobody knows. Some of the best strategists have been absolutely humbled by the dramatic decline and dramatic response back up. Thankfully, we did not make here any drastic movements that put ourselves or our clients in harm. But the interesting thing is what the government has done, whether it's healthy for the economy and our country in the long haul, is not the point. Whether we agree with it politically has no point. I'm simply telling you what the market thinks, and the market loves the trillions of dollars that have poured in to support and prop up the market. And there's a famous saying among investors called "Don't fight the Fed." And that means when the Federal Reserve is putting all of their ammo in, they tend to win the war. Not every battle. Again, is that healthy? Is that good for our country? What about our grandchildren and the debt? Different topic. The point is the market really likes what they've done, and there's good reason to think that the market can continue to provide returns, even though many of us look around and say everyone's unemployed and this business isn't open and that sign in front of the store says for lease. What's going on? There is a bit of a disconnect between that part of the economy and the way the market's happening, and it's explainable. So nobody knows what's going to happen, but it isn't as illogical as it seems to many at first glance.
Yeah, it makes you wonder the selective amnesia the consumer will have when COVID is all over, because I know from what I thought was going to resonate for a longer period of time after 2008, threw it out the window during the boom times, and you wonder how long after COVID is over are they going to go back to their old ways? We simply don't know.
Well, in 2008, I mean, I was in the commercial real estate world. In 2008, as we all know, the market was destroyed, and then in about January of 2010, you could feel it coming back. In about March 2010, it started coming back. And I think about in April, everybody forgot. I mean, it was like overnight. Right. Yeah. At least that's how it felt. Jim, you're a breath of fresh air. You're great a great guest. So quickly, quick speed round. Favorite book and why?
Bible. It's changed my life the most.
And I would say, I ask a lot of people that question, and I would say the Bible is the number one book across the board. Yeah.
New York Times bestseller, I suppose.
and they didn't have to buy 100,000 copies themselves to actually get that that mark.
Right.
Your favorite northern Michigan city?
My favorite what?
Your favorite place up north to take the family?
Oh, the Torch Lake area. I have a good childhood friend who lives up there, and a number of clients we serve, and I would like to be there today if I could.
You and me both.
Oh.
Define yourself in one word.
Maximizer. That came quickly. Strengths Finder, Gallup Strengths Finder is one of those personality tests. Yeah. that was my top strength, and I just feel great when I can really maximize something. Do my best.
All right. Randy, last question.
Give me a hard ball. Give me a fastball. Give me something hard.
0 to 60 or 60 to 0?
0 to 60.
That's a good.
0 to 60. I don't even know what I'm answering.
It's a good one. Jim,
You want to accelerate real quick, or you want to take it slow? I sense you're a take it slow kind of guy to bring people back to what's acceptable levels.
Oh, fascinating. Wow. Okay. So my personality is 0 to 60. I was a sprinter in college. I ran track in college, played football in high school. That maximizer personality, I'm very intense. My mom warned my wife when we got married, Jim runs hard, make sure you're okay with that. But Randy, being anchored in what matters most, our deepest values, that's the path to alignment and feeling good and fulfillment and authenticity and all those good things. So that there is a bringing back, whoa, that's shiny over there. What really matters? So I don't know. I guess 30 to 0, 0 to 30. What's halfway between your two questions?
You sound like a Tesla.
all right, Jim, tell everybody how to get a hold of you and tell everybody how to get a hold of you.
MotiveWA.com. Motive, W-A, as in motivewealthadvisors.com.
All right. Jim, you're always a blast. You're filled with great information. I love the energy that you brought today. I appreciate you being on the show. Again, you've been on a couple times. And thanks, man. It's always great. I wish you continued success and keep on inspiring other people like you do. Randy?
So respect you both. Thank you.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. You are certainly a breath of fresh air and a financial parachute to anybody who finds himself in free fall.
Nice.
So you're the guy they need to anchor to bring them down.
Buoyant. It's my new word. Buoyant.
I love it. All right, guys. Thank you very much. Appreciate you, Randy. Always fun.
Thank you.
Until next week, fellas.